Earlier this year, Zimmer Biomet filed a $175 million lawsuit against Deloitte for a failed SAP implementation. That's what I want to talk about today. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney. For the last 20 years, I've devoted my practice to drafting and negotiating technology-related contracts and litigating failed technology disputes in courts across the country. So make no mistake about it, a $175 million ERP failure is enormous, and the lawsuit resulting from that is complex. I've got it right here. It's 53 pages of allegations, and it reads like a soap opera. So how did we get here? Well, in 2015, Zimmer merges with Biomet, inheriting multiple disparate ERP systems. In 2020, Zimmer engaged Deloitte to conduct a 10-month review of Zimmer Biomet's software environment. And out of that 10-month review came Deloitte's recommendation to migrate or to implement SAP. According to Deloitte, that would result in a 10-year net benefit of anywhere between $197 million to $306 million in savings. And obviously that did not happen. While the allegations in Zimmer Biomet's complaint are relatively straightforward, I think there's a lesson to be learned in the factual support for those allegations. In its complaint, Zimmer Biomet alleges fraudulent inducement as its first cause of action. It alleges various species of fraud. And then it also makes an allegation of breach of contract and then breach of a New York statute that essentially is an unfair business practices type of statute. And my assumption for the reason that they make that allegation is because there might be some statutory fees associated with violations of that particular statute. So nothing particularly unusual about the claims in the complaint, the legal claims. But I think as you go through this complaint, and it's a doozy, it really tells a story of fraud, deception. It's loaded with words like bait and switch, death by change orders, and this is all relatively common in the lawsuits that we litigate. And my firm is not involved in this particular lawsuit, but I do know the attorney in the firm that have brought this case. And this is a typical story in some ways, but certainly a little bit unusual. And I think you look at this, and what becomes immediately evident is that there was a 25-year history between Deloitte and Zimmer Biomet. So there was a level of trust that Zimmer had with Deloitte, and I think that worked to its disadvantage. I think Zimmer, I believe, based on what the complaint alleges, really relied on Deloitte's expertise, not only in implementing the system, but certainly in selecting that software system. And I think that is, without a doubt, one of the first lessons to be learned from this lawsuit is that you have to have a substantive level of due diligence. You cannot just rely on your vendor. You've got to trust, but verify what they are telling you. You've got to have a healthy dose of skepticism, because I think in this case in particular, you've got the fox running the hen house with little check from Zimmer Biomet. So you've got a scenario where, as alleged in the complaint, that Zimmer alleges that Deloitte did this deep dive, made an assessment that the SAP software was a good fit, that it met their business requirements, it would require minimal modification and customization. And then you get hit with something like 51 change orders, which balloon the price from $69 million to $94 million. And those are huge numbers in and of themselves, but the resulting damage to Zimmer is astronomical. They had to restate their corporate earnings. They took a massive hit to their corporate earnings. They took a $2 billion hit in their valuation. That is just enormous. I mean, they had issues with shipping out product. They had issues with every business function that you could imagine. Per the complaint, all of it was impacted by Deloitte's supposed incompetence in their deception. So, I think the impact that one of these failures can have on you is massive, and it can be absolutely devastating. And I think if you were a smaller company and you had, a proportional hit to your share price and your market valuation, you could very well be out of business. Some of the allegations in here, the factual allegations, again, read like a soap opera. Deloitte failed to properly manage the project. The system go live was moved multiple times due to constant delays in Deloitte's development work and testing. Zimmer Biomet relied on Deloitte's advice and recommendation to go live. Apparently, the system was not ready to go live, despite Deloitte telling Zimmer that it was. Zimmer estimates that it has incurred $72 million in additional post-go-live damages, and that's calculated with employee time spent fixing Deloitte's mistakes, inefficiencies caused by manual workarounds, licensing and maintenance fees associated with the continued use of the legacy system that would not have been necessary had Zimmer gone live when Deloitte said it was going to. There's increased freight costs. There's Zimmer's lost sales resulting from the post-go live disruption. So this is a major ERP lawsuit, one of the biggest that we have seen certainly this year from a monetary perspective. But again, all ERP failures are different in how they fail, but they all follow a similar trajectory. And this one is really no different. And I think the main takeaways from this failure are you simply can't trust your integrator, right? And if you're going to blindly follow them based on their purported expertise, you're setting yourself up for failure. There are indications in this complaint that there was turnover in the leadership at Zimmer during the implementation. I think that is problematic. You've got to have executive buy-in, and that executive buy-in needs to be consistent. Certainly, we have not yet seen an answer to the complaint or a motion to dismiss this complaint, but I will assure you that these issues will be pointed right back at Zimmer by Deloitte, that Zimmer certainly had a revolving door of project leadership. It wasn't committed fully to the project. It prioritized customizations over standard functionality. So you're going to see kind of a he said, she said type of scenario. And that, from a factual perspective, is very difficult to parse out, and is one of the reasons why these types of lawsuits can be incredibly expensive to litigate. The other lesson learned from this, in addition to just relying on your relationship with your integrator, a lack of dedication from your leadership to the project, is really it doesn't appear that there was a substantive software selection process. No other software vendors appear to have been considered. Zimmer was just going on what Deloitte believed was best and didn't independently vet the fit and function of that software for its business. So I think if you're going to do those things, I think you've got a one-way ticket to the courthouse. And I hope that is not a scenario that you're going to encounter. But I do think there are certainly lessons learned from lawsuits like this on how to avoid a digital transformation failure and avoid finding yourself in a courthouse. If you have any questions about anything in this video, please feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to talk to you and get you pointed in the right direction. Thank you.